Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, very happy to have our buddy Glenn Kirschner on, a former 30-year federal prosecutor, served in the U.S. Army and JAG Corps. His YouTube channel, Justice Matters with Glenn Kirschner, has 1.1 million subscribers. His Substack is remarkably, wildly popular as well. Good to see you, Glenn.
Great to be with you, Dean.
So a lot going on. And, I had to get I thought of you when I saw that Ghislaine Maxwell was moved from her prison in Florida to a club fed just 2 days after talking to Trump's former personal lawyer, who's still his personal lawyer, let's be honest, Todd Blanche, now second in charge of DOJ. And I know you made videos about it. So share your view as a former federal prosecutor. What's going on?
Yeah, so this is a whole lot of ugliness and indecency. As a former career prosecutor, I would sometimes sit down with somebody who I actually convicted and who was serving a sentence if, Dean, I thought that person could still give me truthful information about bigger criminal fish. I would strike what we call a post-trial cooperation agreement because there are still benefits I could provide to that kind of a person, like moving them to a cushier facility or even filing what's called a Rule 35 motion to reduce their sentence, the sentence they are serving. But Dean, that's only if the person can provide me with really substantial assistance. Those are magic words in the practice of federal criminal law. Truthful information about bigger criminal fish that I could actually use to hold other folks accountable. Todd Blanche is doing the exact opposite. Todd Blanche is meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell in hopes that she will say, Donald Trump is pure as the driven snow. He's never did anything wrong, and I'm willing to testify to that fact. Now, mind you, Ghislaine Maxwell is a convicted child sex trafficker who not only facilitated Epstein's crimes against young girls, but who participated in a hands-on way in some of those crimes herself. She was indicted for 2 counts of perjury, lying under oath to protect Jeffrey Epstein. There's not a word out of that woman's mouth that anyone should credit or believe. But of course, after 9 hours of interviews with Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney, Todd Blanche, what did they do? They moved her from a co-ed prison, a prison proper that housed men and women, to a women's camp in Texas where it's not even fully secured with a fence. And she's enjoying Pilates classes and a full-time medical staff. I'm glad she's getting free medical care while they try to cut Medicaid from others. And it's clear that she got that preferential treatment. She wasn't even eligible as a convicted sex offender to be assigned to that women's camp. But the Bureau of Prisons, I'm sure, was strong-armed by DOJ, by the White House, to make an exception for her or waive that exception. She never would have gotten any of that preferential treatment if she implicated Donald Trump in wrongdoing. So now let me just share, in concluding this little segment, Let me share 2 headlines that we just saw in the last 24 hours. This from NBC News. Trump administration considering releasing transcript of DOJ's interview with Ghislaine Maxwell. Well, why are they considering releasing it? Let's go to the ABC News headline. Ghislaine Maxwell told DOJ Trump never did anything concerning around her. And during 9 hours of interviews with Todd Blanche, Ghislaine Maxwell said nothing that would be harmful to President Donald Trump. And why would she? Donald Trump holds the key to her jail cell, figuratively speaking, in his hand in the form of a presidential pardon. Ghislaine Maxwell is in it for Ghislaine Maxwell and no one else. And the victims are being re-victimized every damn day by this stupid reality show that Donald Trump and Pam Bondi are producing.
And I'm glad that you brought up the reason that DOJ is considering releasing the audio. And also for the idea that, that Ghislaine said Trump never did anything concerning around her. Well, what's the baseline for that? Jeffrey Epstein? When we were there, he didn't actually rape a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old like Jeffrey Epstein. He did other things. I find it interesting CNN's reporting the top Trump officials will gather tonight at Vice President Vance's house to continue whether to publish an audio recording of this, as opposed to focusing things like bringing down inflation, the jobs are sliding, we're heading to a recession. They're going to have an all hands, all administration, top person meeting tonight at J.D. Vance's house to discuss this. This is their situation room is about just trying to clear Trump from sex crimes.
And Dean, I hope it doesn't distract the administration from its efforts to continue to unconstitutionally chase undocumented immigrants through Home Depot parking lots and tackle them and try to stuff them onto planes, violating their due process rights. I hope they can still spend their full time and attention on that while, getting together to strategize and come up with a script for the next episode of the Donald Trump Pam Bondi reality show. But here's the thing, Dean, when I saw that reporting about them all getting together, the White House and the DOJ leadership, this traditional separation between the executive branch, the White House, and the law enforcement function of the Department of Justice, that separation is dead in the Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche Department of Justice. Donald Trump is now fully in charge of who gets investigated, who gets prosecuted, who gets a break, even though we know they're committing crimes, gets a break by not being investigated or perhaps being pardoned if they've been convicted. I mean, this is so obscene, and it's so contrary to the way I think virtually all presidents viewed the importance of the separation between the White House and the Department of Justice, that we are in the Wild West where anything goes. The rule of law means nothing. The constitutional protections that we're all supposed to enjoy mean nothing to Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche, and Donald Trump. And we better buckle up, because shit's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better.
I'm chatting with our friend Glenn Kirschner. And Glenn, I'm glad you mentioned the victims. It's something I've mentioned on the show, the re-victimization of the people. And now the family of Virginia Roberts, that was her maiden name, Gouffre is her married name, who committed suicide a few months ago. Her family said that the voice of the victims must be heard. And at this meeting, referring to the J.D. Vance meeting and to Congress, we call upon the House subcommittee to invite survivors to testify. And to remind people, Virginia was 16 working at Trump's Mar-a-Lago when she was recruited and groomed by Ghislaine Maxwell. And that's one, and Donald Trump confirmed that's one of the children stolen, and just one, because Donald Trump said, again, I told Epstein, don't do that again. He did it again. So Trump let Epstein, this predator, have one child to have sex with, but the second one was too much. And no one in the media has asked who was the first child that he stole from working for you who had sex with Epstein. I don't know why the media doesn't ask that obvious question. It was again, he said again. And so the families are saying the survivors should be heard, and they have to be. There's no hint from the Trump regime of any concern for the victims, and there's 1,000 victims, according to the DOJ's own memo.
And they're being re-victimized by Donald Trump now every day. Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, and Todd Blanche are re-victimizing. And Dean, I don't know if we talked about this. I don't think we did, but I love this fact about the court filings in the Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein motion to unseal grand jury transcripts. I love this because the court directed Pam Bondi to state, this is a court order. When a court directs you to state something, Dean, it's a court order. State whether before you filed this motion to unseal grand jury transcripts, you notified all the victims. And you know what Pam Bondi said in her written reply that she filed with the court? Apparently, she takes Emile Beauvais up on his recommendation that sometimes you got to tell federal court judges, F you. She refused to state whether they had notified the victims. Here's how she answered it, and this is damn near a quote. Well, in response to your directive that I state whether we notified the victims before we filed the motion to unseal, we have now notified most of the victims. In other words, F you, Judge, I'm not going to answer your question because the answer would be, no, we didn't notify the victims, which in substance means we are re-victimizing
Sure.
them. She, in substance, said F you to the judge and violated the court order that she state whether she had done that or not. This is today's Department of Justice leadership.
And so, in part and parcel of this, and you've covered this on Justice Matters, is this new action by Bondi, which is designed obviously to distract from Epstein, but they're literally getting Pam Bondi has directed DOJ prosecutors to launch a grand jury investigation into whether the Obama administration officials committed crimes when they assessed the 2016 election. And Tulsi Gabbard was just on in the last few hours again on Fox News saying Obama was last night actually. Obama was the mastermind and it's treason and all this stuff. And what's your reaction to that? And also, can you touch on I don't know what the crimes are going to be, but I think statute of limitations probably run from 2016 to 2025. But what's your sense and reaction to this?
Well, I hate to even, state that treason has no statute of limitations because this is all foolishness.
Right,
And
right, right.
this is part of distraction palooza. That's what they are doing. Dean, what did they do just a few days ago? Announced an investigation into former special counsel Jack Smith. And
Yep.
now, in the last 20, announced an investigation into Obama and his administration for the review of, all things Trump, Russia in 2016. I mean, they are losing the ability to distract. But Dean, this is Donald Trump's MO. Just announce investigations.
Mm-hmm.
You don't actually have to conduct them. You don't have to indict anybody. You don't have to go to trial. Dean, how many people has Donald Trump promised he would prosecute, right? Starting with the OG of lock her up, Hillary Clinton, we're going to prosecute her, and Adam Schiff and Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney and Miles Taylor and Chris Krebs and John Brennan and James Comey and Letitia James and Alvin Bragg and Jack Smith. And how many of those people have been prosecuted? Zero. None of them will be prosecuted, Dean, because even if they can find a lying, unethical DOJ attorney to go into a grand jury and present the testimony of an FBI agent who is willing to lie, I think you're going to be very hard pressed to find an FBI agent willing to go before the grand jury and lie and say, Obama committed all kinds of crimes and we'd like you to indict him. Dean, that case, if it's indicted by a federal grand jury, has to then be run through the federal courts, and the federal judiciary, in my view, will cram a vindictive, baseless, evidence-free prosecution right down the throat of the DOJ attorney unethical enough to bring it. So none of this is going to happen any more than, this is exactly when he told President Zelensky, just announce an investigation of my political opponent, Joe Biden. This is when he told his own DOJ officials when he lost the 2020 election, and they told him there's no fraud undermining your loss, Mr. President. He said, I don't care. Just say there was and leave the rest to me and my allies in Congress. This is his demonstrated MO. Announce investigations to plant the seed in the minds of the American people. And maybe those folks who are gullible enough to still believe it will be persuaded.
And as a practical matter, Glenn, what's the impact on the morale at DOJ? In the sense, there are people who were career prosecutors who wanted to serve our nation for their entire career. And now they're in a corrupt DOJ where Donald Trump runs it like it's his own law firm, and in malicious and bad faith actions by this DOJ because Trump directs it.
They are being decimated and devastated. Unfortunately, there's not just a brain drain from the Department of Justice, there's an ethics drain, because the people who are used to doing the work of the American people rather than the work of a corrupt president don't want to be part of Pam Bondi's DOJ because she's nothing more than a flunky for Donald Trump. And
Right.
She has abused the power of the Department of Justice to serve Donald Trump's interests rather than the interests of the American people. And they are fleeing. I think it's 2/3.
We lost our friend. Hey, Aaron, you there? He's back.
Oh, shoot. I don't know if this is live or not. I hope you can edit that out.
Oh
I
no,
just
it's not
got,
live. No, no, it's not. We're
okay.
not doing
Yeah.
Substack live.
I just
So
got kicked out. I just got
you were
kicked out.
saying
Yeah. So I was
2/3 of
saying
the people. We'll pick it up from 2/3 of the people.
two-thirds. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the latest reporting, Dean, is two-thirds of the civil rights section DOJ lawyers have left. Some have been fired, but many have left voluntarily because they went from doing civil rights cases and investigations to, make sure there's no voter intimidation going on, to basically doing, voter integrity investigations. In other words, we're going to try to use the power of the Department of Justice to suppress voters, minority voters predominantly. And Dean, they can't do it. They can't. I couldn't do it. It would be like if I was still a federal prosecutor in Washington, D.C. at the U.S. Attorney's Office, I had to start doing the work on behalf of the criminals instead of on behalf of the victims. You can't do that if you're an ethical attorney.
Do you foresee that some DOJ lawyers might have ethical issues down the road in terms
Yeah.
of their actions on behalf of this? There's no, just so people understand, there's no pardoning an ethical investigation or being disbarred. That can happen.
Yeah. And how many Trump lawyers have been
Yeah.
disbarred? I think the most recent was Jeffrey Clark was
Jeffrey Clark.
recommended for disbarment by the D.C. Board of Professional Responsibility for what he did for Donald Trump, right? Tried to kind of squirrel the results of the 2020 election by sending letters to battleground states saying DOJ has found fraud in the investigation,
Right.
when the people responsible for conducting those investigations in DOJ said, no, we didn't. You can't lie like that on DOJ letterhead to try to undermine Joe Biden's election win. Jeffrey Clark did it. He's been recommended for disbarment, together with John Eastman, who is pending disbarment in California, and Kenneth Chesebro's been disbarred. Rudy Giuliani's been disbarred twice over. Jenna Ellis has been suspended from the practice of law for 3 years and has a conviction on her record, pleaded guilty for lying to try to help Donald Trump. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Dean, there's recent reporting that 3 more DOJ lawyers, I think a nonprofit, recommended them to be investigated for ethics violations to their state bars because of some of the representations they were making in federal court that judges did not believe. When a judge says, look, DOJ lawyer X, I don't believe what you're telling me. I don't think you're being candid with the court. What you're saying is contradicted by the evidence. That is something that will get you referred to bar counsel. And I do think, Dean, part of the reason this is not sustainable is because there are fewer and fewer and fewer DOJ lawyers, I believe, who are willing to go into court and do Pam Bondi's dirty bidding because they're going to be held to account by their state bar if they do it.
And that's very important because it cannot be a system where there's no threat of a consequence. Consequences have an impact on people's conduct. That's why we have a criminal justice system. In this case, it's the lawyers who are going to suffer personal consequences for this. So I'm chatting with our friend Glenn Kirschner. Glenn, you've covered a lot about what's going on with Maxwell and Trump's efforts to distract. And then I just see yesterday, I'm laughing because it makes no sense. Although they have their own game. James Comer, the House Oversight Committee chair, has now issued a subpoena yesterday for the DOJ records on Jeffrey Epstein. And they have a list of people they want to depose, including Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Bill Barr, Alberto Gonzalez, who was a DOJ AG under Bush, Jeff Sessions, Loretta Lynch, Eric Holder, and Merrick Garland, James Comey, and more. And I'm like, what do you want to just make this an even bigger story? I'm like, I would have thought Trump would have told them, stand down, don't do anything. If this were to go forward and any of these hearings would have happened, they would be headline grabbing. They'd be everywhere.
Here's the interesting part. Donald Trump has, in substance, told his Republicans in Congress to stand down, don't do anything. The words he used are that the people in Congress who are still obsessing about this are, quote, foolish and stupid. Donald Trump's words for his congressional allies. And yet, as you say, James Comer, House Oversight Committee, just issued all of those subpoenas, giving this story legs, right? Keeping it alive, keeping it, in the public limelight, which is a great thing because this is the one scandal that Trump has not been able to distract his way out of. I mean, the announcements that I'm investigating Jack Smith, I'm investigating Obama, they're landing with a thud, and they're not distracting the MAGA base or the Republicans in Congress from continuing to pursue this story. Now, I'm not going to say that Donald Trump's presidency will not survive the Epstein-Maxwell scandal, but let me tell you, there's no guarantee it will survive the Epstein-Maxwell scandal. And listen, this is one of the few things I am glad the Republicans in Congress have done. They're going to continue to dig in and expose wrongdoing, hopefully. And I don't care if the people who were part of Jeffrey Epstein's horrific enterprise of sexually abusing young girls are Republicans or Democrats or independents or have no affiliation. I don't care. They all need to be They all need to be got. They all need to be got, right? They all need to be held accountable.
No one on our side is saying, oh, I don't want to look into this because it might find the names of Democrats. Hey, whoever it finds, it finds. That's life. And if you've did anything with children, raping children, molesting children, involved in a recruitment of a ring to have sex with children, you got to be prosecuted. And that there's no way around it. You know, you mentioned Jack Smith. I wanted you to help explain here just the idea. The Office of the Special Counsel is investigating Jack Smith because Tom Cotton, a Republican senator, and other Republicans, but especially Tom Cotton, call for it. But this Office of Special Counsel is not special counsel as we know it, where DOJ appoints people. Can you explain what's going on there?
Yeah, no, usually when we talk about special counsel, it's somebody that has been specifically appointed because there's a potential conflict. Like there may be an investigation that the Department of Justice feels necessary to launch, but it could implicate a president. It could touch on the president. So now you have a conflict between DOJ, which is beholden to the president, and the president. So you have to appoint a special counsel. I wish we still had the independent counsel statute because there was more separation between the White House and DOJ when we had a truly independent counsel. So special counsel, when appointed by the attorney general, is good. It provides a little bit of a firewall, but the problem is it's still under the kind of control and approval of the attorney general who works for the president. So, but the Office of Special Counsel is a different animal. And when they are asked to investigate certain things, I don't know all of the procedural ins and outs or the prohibitions or the powers of the special counsel's office. But, you know, it just kind of takes things out of the normal channels. The normal channels would be you would assign this to one of the U.S. attorney's offices, one of the United States attorney's offices for investigation. But you can also go the special counsel route. But that's a standing special counsel, not like the specially appointed Jack Smith or Bob Mueller special counsel that we've become familiar with.
And I appreciate that explanation for people because I'm not sure if that's going to go anywhere, and it might be above board, it might not be, but we'll follow it. We may never hear anything. They just like getting the headlines, like you said earlier. It's all about headlines. Jack Smith being investigated. And their base goes, you see, that's good. Last thing, what's your take on the Texas Democrats? They've left the state, and John Cornyn, U.S. Senator, Republican, writes a letter to FBI Kash Patel saying, I want the FBI to go find them in the other states and bring them back. And he wrote specifically, I'm concerned the legislators who solicited or accepted funds to aid in their efforts to avoid their legislative duties may be guilty of bribery or other public corruption offenses. This is all fabricated. Greg Abbott just said that as a throwaway line. Now Cornyn puts it in a letter to DOJ.
Yeah, this is what we call bootstrapping. You know, it really is. And it's troublesome when a senator will ask an FBI headed up by Kash Patel, of all people, there's no legitimacy in the leadership of the FBI to, you know, basically do something that's lawless. I fear that Kash Patel, you know, either not knowing enough about the rule of law or not caring enough about the rule of law will be like, let's get the FBI officials out there to start chasing down Dems from Texas who have committed no crime. There is a civil penalty that could attach if Texas legislator leaves. You know, it's like $1,000 or a penalty, a few $100s per day, but it's not a crime. So the FBI has absolutely no legitimate jurisdiction or basis to get involved in this. But Dean, do you think Kash Patel is going to dispatch FBI agents to start chasing down Democrats from Texas? Wouldn't surprise me.
It's like the fugitive slave clause, but in this case, it's a Democrat, and the fugitive's name is a Democratic member of Congress. Last thing, Glenn, where can people follow you? Where do they want to go? Because Glenn does great stuff. I see every day you get your Substack lives. Now I'm near my computer. I watch at least some of them. I always learn from you.
Yeah, thank you, Dean. So, you can find me on YouTube every day. My YouTube channel is Justice Matters, and I put a legal analysis video up every day. I try to jump on Substack Live at about 8 or 9 p.m. for 10 or 15 minutes to tackle the legal issue of the day in real time and
Hmm.
answer as many questions as I can see scrolling from the folks who join me. And let me just tell you, I am the world's worst salesman because you can go to Substack and get all my content for free. You can also support my efforts by, doing $6 a month or whatever it is, but you don't have to get my content. I'm a lousy salesman. Just go there for free and get the content. If you think it's worthy, you can always support my efforts. But jump on Substack with me. And finally, Patreon gives people an opportunity to see some of the behind the scenes stuff that we do here every day at Justice Matters.
Thank you, Glenn. And Glenn's stuff is very much worth it. So support Glenn. Thanks so much. Have a good time on your. I know you're going on a trip to do some great activism stuff, and I look forward to chat with you in the next couple of weeks.
I'll see you soon.